This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
So in many ways, the heart of strategic management is strategic planning. And one of the commonest ways of going about strategic planning is to use what's called the rational approach or the rational model. And it's called rational because what it does is it tries to collect as much information as it can. It makes logical or rational decisions and evaluations of that information. And then based on the potential conclusions which the data provides, it then makes rational, logical choices as to what it should be doing in the future. Of course, very often there can be conflicting choices. Should we do A or should we do B? And there's no absolutely clear-cut way of deciding. But the idea is it's kind of better than just working in the dark or completely gambling on what we should be doing. So you'd have met this rational model before. It breaks into these three sections, what's called position analysis, which is basically information gathering. What is our position, particularly our position with respect to what's happening in the environment and what our competitors are doing. Then we can make our choice, and then the hard work begins really with action or implementation. We'll be looking at some of these in more detail later, so this is just a very quick overview here. But the idea of a mission is really thinking, well, what's our purpose? That's really what the mission is in here. And we have to know the way the company makes money, what its purpose is, what its reason for being doing, what maybe do people expect from it. So it could be a car company, it could be a television company, it could be a mobile phone company, it could be a holiday company, but it must have a clear vision of what it is doing, how it's going to be making money, how it's going to be serving the public, and also, what it's well known at, what it's well known for. We have to know what our stakeholders want. Stakeholders will see as anyone involved with or touched by the organisation. Organisations tend to be run for someone or some other organisation. They are the stakeholders. So companies typically are run for the shareholders, although of course many other people are interested in what the company's doing. A hospital is maybe primarily run for its patients, though of course medical staff and governments and so on are interested in what it's doing as well. So we have to try and find out what do our stakeholders want, and in some cases what might they insist on us doing. They have very often a very big influence in what we're going to be doing. We then gather external information, what's happening around us, the politics, economics, competitors, the technology, and so on. We see what's happening, or what do we have internally, what are we good at, what are we bad at, basically, what are our strengths and weaknesses. And bringing all of this information together, what do our shareholders and stakeholders want, what's happening in the environment, what are we good at, what are we bad at, in a way, what is possible, what should we be doing, and indeed what is possible. And we can set objectives from this, maybe how many patients to treat next year, what our profit should be in next year, how many of our children going through the school or that's the organisation are going to hit particular exam targets next year and so on. And then what we do is we look at ways in which we could achieve that. And very often there are different ways in which you could achieve it. So if you were a hospital, how are we going to improve patient care? There's maybe a choice. There's going to be a choice, maybe we do everything in-house, or maybe what we do is we decide maybe to subcontract some services. Maybe we subcontract cleaning, maybe we subcontract some of the laboratory services to someone or an organisation who can do it really efficiently. Or maybe we're prepared to keep it in-house, but there are usually choices available as to how best you think you will achieve your objectives. Then you make your choice, and then you have to implement it. There's action. And whereas these first bits here, maybe you do in a week or something, of course the strategic implementation is really where the hard work starts. Implementing, say, expansion for plans for a company, yeah, it could take 3 to 5 years. And what we need to do is to control this process. And we need to do two things really. First of all, we've had our particular objectives, we have made a particular choice. We have to keep thinking, is that still appropriate? Because things change, the world changes, the economy changes, the political situation changes, and something which was appropriate when we made a decision may be wildly inappropriate in a couple of years, and we may need to change our plans. The second thing we need to do, even if the plan stayed the same, is we need to make sure we're aiming at it, that we're going to hit the plan in the time that it's going to deliver what we think it's going to deliver. So we need frequent checkups really, that we're on target and that we're on course. So that's what's called basically the rational model. Collect information, think about it, make your decision, and then implement the decision. This just illustrates that although we seem to have gone through 1, 2, 3 there, collect the information, make your choice, implement it, it's never going to be like that. It's a much more reiterative sort of process here. It's like going on holiday. You get all the brochures, you get all the information you need to make your holidays. You get your friends round, you decide that you're going to go 2 weeks somewhere in August here. You make your choices. And then, of course, when you go back to try and book the holidays, you find that maybe that flight or that hotel is full. Or maybe when one of your friends goes back to book holidays off work, finds he or she can get the holidays that you want. And so what you need to do is to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit and reconsider stuff. So always once you start doing things, you find out a little bit more about it. You find out things, well, it's not just as simple or as straightforward or as cheap as I thought. Or maybe it's riskier than I thought. Or there's another idea that we hadn't thought of originally that I've now stumbled upon when I actually get to the implementation. So what you're doing here is really circulating around here. And it's very important that any strategic plan is never thought to be set in stone. Part of strategic planning is actually to try and build in enough slack that you remain flexible, that you can maybe abandon a plan if it seems to be going incorrectly, that maybe you can go faster if it seems to be going well and you want to expand faster than maybe some of your competitors are beginning to do. This again is going to be familiar with you. It is simply saying that the plan you first thought of, which is here called the intended strategy, is rarely going to be the plan you end up doing. It's rarely going to be realized fully. What will happen is as time passes, you're going to drop some ideas. Maybe you discover they were wrong, too expensive, too difficult, too risky, and therefore you just kind of quietly drop them. But as time goes on and you gain more experience, and of course as time passes things change, then you have what's called emergent strategies, new ideas which you can incorporate into the plan. So the realized strategy is this kind of real mix-up, things we always intended to do, the deliberate strategy, less things we abandoned, so to speak, plus new ideas we picked up on the way. And again, it's simply illustrating here that flexibility in strategic planning is key. No one can foretell the future perfectly enough to be able to stick with the plan that they first thought of. And they should be willing and should be humble enough really to be prepared to change it. Not everyone believes that this big rational model is actually correct. The irrational model is kind of saying I'm going to be planning for the next 5 years, maybe the next 10 years and so on. And some people say that this is a kind of arrogance, and particularly this here, that people say you don't know the future. You don't even know what's called the known unknowns. You know that your competitors are planning something. You know that your competitors are working on a new product, and you don't know what it is. So that's why we called it a known unknown. We know we don't know what our competitors are doing. So what is the point really in making a 5-year plan when you know your competitors could be launching a product which knocks that plan, into oblivion? That it's simply not rational to keep following it. As well as that, there are what's called unknown unknowns. That things happen. There's maybe a very serious earthquake, or maybe a war breaks out, or maybe there's an economic crash, and so on. And we know these bad things happen. We know sometimes good things happen, of course. And if these random good and bad things are happening, we don't know what they are, but they will happen. Why are we making fantastically detailed plans for the next 5 or 10 years? And these people would say that rather than making these big 5-year kind of jumps, they would say it's going to be better to make small extensions of past policies. So you're kind of traveling along here a little bit, and you see maybe the economy looks as though it's picking up. So we do, the economy's kind of picking up a little bit. Let's begin to expand just a little bit here. Another year, yes, the economy's still picking up. We'll continue expanding. And then you begin saying, well, maybe there are now signs of the economy tailing off. So what we do maybe is we shelve some of our potential expansion. And then we'll see, in another couple of years, whether the economy is going to take off again or whether it's going to be a downturn. And they're saying that's far safer than these people who go for their 5-year type of planning. They see the economy's picking up, and they make fantastic plans to go and expand massively. And maybe the economic pickup's only temporary. And you find out here that you've got far too much productive capacity. You've spent far too much money for the environment, which is actually you're actually going to have to be dealing with. The final view on strategic planning is freewheeling opportunism. Basically, these are people who do not like planning. They are often entrepreneurs. They often like grabbing opportunities as they see them. The great advantage of this is that they can grab opportunities very quickly. They don't spend a lot of time planning and thinking. And they can often enter markets very quickly. The disadvantage is, of course, they will jump in with both feet and the eyes closed, really. Maybe too quickly, maybe without evaluating all the risks and the expense and so on. Sometimes they're very successful. You often find serial entrepreneurs who seem to jump from one success to another. But you never quite know whether they are the only serial entrepreneurs who are left standing. That they are, someone's going to be successful by making kind of enough random choices here. And there could be many of these freewheeling opportunists who make a wrong choice, and this is fatal for their business, and we just never hear of them again. I think it's mainly a kind of psychological description of planning. I don't think anyone particularly deliberately sets out to be a freewheeling opportunist, but just some people are not interested in the detailed planning. They would rather get on and do and perhaps gamble a little bit and hope for the best. Potential advantages of strategic planning. Well, it gives you long-term objectives. And everyone likes to know where they're going. You like to know the long-term objectives. But then what tends to happen is you know where you're going to be in 5 years, and therefore 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, and so on. So this kind of future is mapped out for you in the strategic plan. And many people like that. If you don't have that mapped out, you're kind of floating around in kind of space almost, with no sense of direction, and no idea whether you're doing good or bad, or indeed what you should be doing. It will provide better coordination, that the manufacturing capacity meets the sales capacity, meets the distribution capacity, and so on. And that should save money. It can take a long time to implement some plans, and the way many investments work is that there's negative cash flow, negative cash flow, negative cash flows. You're kind of building the factory for 3 years, then about zero cash flow, or if you're opening in another country, and then maybe on about the 5th year you break into profit. The point being made here is that if you don't see the kind of promised land coming up at the end of 5 years, what is going to sustain you through these tough early years where it's work, 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 spend, 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 loss, 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 if you don't have some hope, some plan, some promise, if you like, for profit in the future? Management should seek to control the future. If you're looking ahead and you see something you don't like, you don't always have to just kind of surrender to that. You may be able to change it. You may be able to postpone or change laws which are going to be coming in, or taxes which are going to be imposed, by maybe going to the government ministers and lobbying, basically, and trying to explain how this is going to hurt the business. You could do it maybe by marketing. By marketing a product, showing the good points of the product, you get over the kind of negative connotations that there might be amongst the public regarding our product. And finally, you are forced to look ahead. You won't see everything, you won't see every problem, but surely looking ahead is better than kind of stumbling forward with your eyes closed. Forewarned is forearmed. If you see things which are going to be opportunities or threats in the future, it is better to know about those in advance rather than being surprised about them. And the fact that you don't see 100% of those things is no argument for saying that it mightn't be worthwhile, let's say, seeing 70% of the problems in the future. That some strategic planning, imperfect though it might be, is better than none. Potential disadvantages of strategic planning. All of these are really to do with too much. Too much time and effort spent on strategic planning. Nobody makes money by strategic planning. You only make money by doing. And at some point you have to take the risk. I think many people find comfort in planning because it means you're still kind of hedging your bets. That they plan, want more data, and they're reluctant to ever do, because once you say, right, I'll build that factory, then you've sort of burnt your boats a little bit. And if it doesn't go wrong, then of course there are penalties maybe to pay. If it doesn't go right, then kind of penalties to pay for that. So too much, too slow, too expensive. It's all to do really with not strategic planning as such, but too much of it. Now, of course, CIMA is a management accounting qualification. And there is a topic, a subject in the syllabus called strategic management accounting, which is really how the work of an accountant, the work of a CIMA member, say, can help the steps needed in strategic planning. They help the process of strategic planning. And this is strategic management accounting. They can be defined as the provision of information to support the strategic decisions of organisations. And the idea is that this is distinguished from what you might call ordinary accounting, because ordinary accounting was very much involved with kind of recording historic transactions, maybe comparing actual to budget and so on, but not maybe very much involved in looking to the future, looking forward, which is what strategy really involves, and strategic planning really involves. And what strategic management accounting is really trying to turn the emphasis on how can we actually improve the performance of the organisation. And the characteristics of strategic management accounting are as follows. First of all, there is much greater emphasis on external information. So we're not just recording what happens within the organisation, but we'd be interested in getting information from outside. It could even be as simple as getting information about the prices charged for similar products by your competitors. So we can say, well, here's our price, here's the competitor's price. Obviously, we're not going to sell maybe the same volume with this price difference. What's going to happen if we could reduce our selling price down to the competitor's selling price? And also, if we're going to be doing that, what's going to happen to profits? Is there any way we could maybe reduce the cost of making the product so we can still sell it at a lower price but make the profits we want to be actually making? We'd also be looking at the potential of external markets. How big is the market in Germany, France, and so on there? We could also be looking at maybe what commodity prices are going to be doing in the future. Do we think oil prices are going to go up or stay down? If they're going to go up, should we be buying oil now and stockpiling it, or buying it on the futures market in some way to try to protect ourselves? We will be interested in seeing how to gain competitive advantage. One way of getting competitive advantage is by becoming what's called a cost leader, decreasing your cost way down. And generally speaking, if you decrease your costs down, this is your selling price, this is your cost, you'll be making better profits, which of course puts you in a much stronger position for future survival and future investment and so on there. But generally, if you get your costs down, then of course you can bring your selling prices down as well, and potentially you put a lot of pressure on competitors who have not got those skills. So we would be, for example, interested in seeing, what is the most efficient way of making a product that we can maybe become this cost leader. Or the other way in which you can get competitive advantage is increasing differentiation. Differentiation is where you make a special product, a better product. By better, I mean it suits a particular consumer better. It's more focused on their particular needs, and therefore they will be willing to pay a higher price for it. And of course, we need to some extent, cost that out. What is it likely to cost us to make this special product? What's the volume going to be? If we do make it, then what's the profit going to be? Is it a target which is actually worth pursuing? We have to look at stakeholder considerations. We have to keep our shareholders happy, maybe share price, earnings per share, gross profit percentage, return on capital employed, dividends, and so on there. We need also at the same time to keep our employees happy, wages, bonuses, benefits, and so on there. We need to keep our customers happy. What would happen if we began offering a 3-year warranty? This is maybe what we have to do to keep ourselves competitive with what our competitors are actually doing. If they're all offering 3-year warranties, we maybe need to cost that out. How quickly should we be paying our suppliers? We can pay them very slowly, but then of course they can become awkward, there's going to be bad publicity and so on. Performance monitoring. We'll see that what happens in a lot of strategic planning is you have to get people and departments to do what you want. And therefore what you have to do is you have to set them targets, and some of these are what might be called key objectives or key targets, and we have to monitor those. We have to measure and make sure people are hitting or improving their performance, because if people don't improve their performance, it's going to be very difficult for the organization to improve its performance. And there are all sorts of kind of potential pitfalls in performance monitoring. For example, how difficult should the targets be? If you set targets which are far too difficult, then people can become very demotivated. And the management accountant will have some input in saying how difficult targets should be. What should a reasonable standard be for someone working, at a reasonable rate of work with a reasonable, proportion of machine breakdowns and so on during the week? What should the output be? And then we measure the output, and we then can compare that to what the target was, and then seek explanations for discrepancies. And although we tend to, as accountants, be maybe particularly interested here in what we would call financial measures, this comes naturally to us, we will see that non-financial performance measures are extremely important. There is no point really in producing goods at a very low cost per unit, and that's a financial measure, if the quality is rubbish. Because that will mean you're not going to sell anything, basically. There is no point in having a vast warehouse full of goods, and to some extent there is a financial penalty in having a vast warehouse full of goods, if maybe it takes you a week to deliver those goods to a customer, because simply the distribution system is very inefficient. The only point really in having perhaps a vast warehouse full of goods with loads and loads of different goods is you can service your customers' needs very, very quickly, and you get this fantastic kind of reputation for, go there, they always have the part and deliver it, within kind of 3 hours. You'll see increasingly it's this non-financial performance which actually supports the financial performance. If you don't do good things really, you're not going to get good financial results. Now, a couple of writers called Burns and Scapens had something to say about management accounting function and how it's changed its focus from financial control to business support, as I said. And they would hold that management accountants have become more generalists, not just recording what has happened, and they are providing internal consulting services to managers. So managers will ask them, what would be the effect on profits, let's say, if I were to do this? And if I were to cut these costs, but I was to increase my volume of sales and so on, if I were to put this special offer on, what do you think might happen? So this internal consulting is very important. And they said there were three main forces for change. First of all, there is technology, which basically means IT. With IT, you can record information, basically record your kind of transactional information, but then you can serve it up in all sorts of different ways. You can very, very quickly do all sorts of analyses on it, all sorts of searches and so on. You can build it into financial models, and then you can model what might happen in the future very, very quickly to give this kind of internal advice. So good technology makes it much easier and more efficient to provide this forward-looking information that managers might need. Secondly, there is a management structure. A management structure has by and large moved from what you would call a tall-narrow structure, so we call tall-narrow here. It was where you had lots and lots of managers, lots and lots of kind of layers there, but each manager not looking after very many people. And it meant that managers, if you're only kind of looking after two people, you can give a lot of time to kind of almost reperforming their work and supervising very closely. What we've moved to now, instead of tall narrow, is more wide flat, where the typical structure is many fewer layers, but any particular manager looking after far more people. So it's much more really egalitarian. And what it means is that if you're a manager now, instead of being able to give you kind of half a week to interfere with your job, so to speak, if you're looking after 10 people or something, then your manager can only kind of supervise you and help you for half a day a week. It means that the people at the bottom here need much more information. And they will be responsible for making many decisions, maybe rather than the manager, because this manager has simply not got the time to make decisions on the behalf of maybe 10 or 20 people reporting to them. And how are these people going to be making decisions? Well, they will be coming more often to the management accounting function, because they will need to be provided with information which is the right information to allow them to make a reasonably rational decision. And finally, competition. Competition has by and large increased actually ferociously in many organisations. If you think of the competition which is around in, let's say, retailing or manufacturing or IT or just the manufacturing of computers and so on, there are very, very powerful firms. The competition changes very, very quickly. There's often very, very kind of quick emergence of new companies with new ideas and so on here. Things are moving basically faster. And I can comment also with the technology. It's a faster world, more marketing, more new products being developed and launched and so on. And so it's not like costing a product once and then manufacturing it for 10 years. Many companies now will launch 3 or 4 products a year. So you need more and more access to information about the likely outcome of this product, its costs, its likely volume, its selling price, how it's going to compare to the competition and so on. Because if you don't do that, you will not be able to bring forward a succession of successful and profitable products. So the management accountant is up there really out the front, in the vanguard really, of either making decisions or helping other managers, providing data for other managers to make the decisions they need to make in this fast, competitive, or almost turbulent environment which many businesses now find themselves in.